In the world of business building, we often wonder if it could get any more complicated. GRC, GDPR, ESG, zero carbon, green hydrogen, cybersecurity, and big data. Let's not forget the long funding processes that can make you crazy. If you are a world changing founder and innovator, how do you connect with the support that you need to move ahead? Well, this podcast puts the people, planet, profit through partnerships theory to action by helping you to see opportunities in every episode to create a meaningful partnership. The innovators, experts, and diplomats we interview are all looking for partners, and that could be you. No time like the present to find out. So welcome to Frontrunners Innovate with your host, global business developer, Mary Kurek. Hello, everyone. I have a question for you. If you've ever wondered how fintech can solve some of the world's biggest problems, especially when so much of the world doesn't even quite embrace it yet, well, today you may get some answers. Just hang around. I'm Mary Kurek, global business developer and president of Frontrunners Development, and your host for Frontrunners Innovate. Our guest today is Xiaochen Zhang, and he is the founder and CEO of FinTech for Good, headquartered in Chicago. We're going to get to know him a little bit and the important roles that he plays in helping innovation in finance, climate, and technology to gain new ground. And that's important because we've been talking about that for about the last 5 minutes before we even got on record. And he'll answer maybe that question about how fintech helps to solve big problems and maybe some of the problems that are inherent with that. My guest co-host today is Stanley Li, and he's an innovator and founder himself in the Silicon Valley area. Stanley heads up Netswitch Technology Management, and that is a company that is connecting cybersecurity to one of my favorite things, GRC, governance. And we'll get to know a little bit more about that and him in just a second. So I just want to say, welcome, everybody. Welcome, Stanley and Xiaochen. It's so great. And, Xiaochen, we've actually known each other for a while. Stanley and I have been talking for the last few weeks, so we got to know each other through LinkedIn. So I'm going to turn to him first. So, gentlemen, again, thanks for being here. Stanley, talk to us a little bit about Netswitch and what you're doing there.
Yes, Netswitch is a retro startup, like I call it, in the Silicon Valley spirit, right? So what I have been doing in the last 23 years when I founded Netswitch is convergence technology, analog to digital, and of course, digital transformations, and brought us along with cybersecurity, and then of course being an internal auditor for global companies and small mid-sized companies. So we've been doing quite a bit of that integrations between IT, cybersecurity, and GRC. And what now we call it a cyber resilience. And part of that now we're looking at NIST 8286, integrating cybersecurity into enterprise risk management, and put together a platform called SARA, Security and Risk Assessment, and looking at what is available, which is a lot of technology tools and expertise in the space in our industry, and how can we work together to accelerate autonomous cyber resilience. And what we did is we put together the ABCD technology, the AI, but actually more specific is augmented intelligence, blockchain data lake, cyber resilience, and data analytic, the ABCD, and how can we fast track and helping organizations with our two tracks of effort. One is more using open source, and we put together an open source solution for data visualizations and how that can open up communications that lead into more collaborative way of operating. And then the other side of it, how can we leverage ABCD and the world of expertise like both of you into fast tracking the processes and not just looking at the technology, which we all know a lot of that has been billions of dollars has been spending in that kind of industry, of trillions if you're counting the IT side as well. So how can we fast track the process, elevating the connaissance with the people, not just from the top executive level or the governance or the technologists, but everybody involved. And this is the part that we believe in elevating connaissance will help organization, and what actually is one of the most cost efficient tool is educations to the organizations.
Thank you. Thank you, Stanley. I can already hear in what you just said some things that kind of correlate with what Xiaochen does. So let's get to our special guest now. So Xiaochen, tell us a little bit about your background, what brought you into the fintech sector.
Thank you for the invitation, Mary, and great to meet you, Stanley. My name is Xiaochen Zhang, the CEO and founder of Fintech for Good. And Fintech for Good is a venture building company. We build emerging technology-based fintech innovation and mostly solving 4 types of problems: climate change, financial inclusion, poverty reduction, and gender equality. And in the past few years, we built a lot of blockchain-based ventures. And just recently, we started building out a lot of AI-based ventures as well. And in addition to Fintech for Good, and I have been in the international development space for a long time, worked for United Nations, World Bank, and also served on the board of director for many development organizations. And from the earlier Mary's question, how fintech can just help to solve the problem, we just look at the broader, bigger problem humans are facing, and many are can be captured by the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. 17 goals cover almost everything. Where that's throughout my career, that was my inspiration, and how to just bring the right technology to help to either to develop frontier type of technology, and or to just make the existing technology commercially viable, so that the existing problem can be solved by the technology, and with reduced cost, with better process, and make saving time, saving energy, saving money for us to address the problem moving forward.
Great, thank you. I want to start out though by asking, can you give us an example of how fintech has, whether it be blockchain or AI, has already been incorporated in a solution maybe that has gone to a good place that has been helping?
And let's start from blockchain for climate. I think that is something which is really important. Climate change is one of the most daunting challenges humans are facing, and when we're talking about the climate finance gap, that's $1 trillion gap, and where that's many of the thought leaders and also industry leaders have just made that claim that if we are able to leverage existing technology which are available without additional new technology, we are able to solve the problem. But those technology are not being used by individual, by company, by government, because of many reasons. And the number one reason, and a lot of them are talking about, is really the cost, commercial viability. And say, for example, if you want to just deploy a renewable energy project, or energy efficiency project, or climate smart agriculture project, and naturally that's with the climate component, that add additional cost to that project developer, and because of that additional cost, they don't want to do it, because they cannot get the right return, and then there's no incentive for them to do that. But when you look at the whole project value chain, a lot of the project costs actually go to monitor, evaluation, reporting, collecting data, sharing data, collecting data from remote areas, all that make any of those climate projects becoming extremely expensive. And but that should not be necessary, and many of them can really be addressed by a technology solution, which now you can see a lot of blockchain technology have been used to support an MRV system, where that you can just basically from the project developer, for example, you developed a renewable energy project, and then when you have that solar panels started to just generate electricity, that's already just go directly, the data have been recorded directly to the chain, and then when the final users are using the electricity, and the smart contract can just make the transaction directly happen, where the final user pay for the bill, and then the electricity provider, the solar company, can just get a payment back, and all that record nobody can tamper, and where that you don't need to collect data, report again, and all that just make the solution itself much more cost effective, and then make solar for climate change becoming commercially viable. And that is just one of the examples. There are tons of other examples.
And projections are part of that, yes? Can projections of use or,
Yeah, exactly. And that's actually, again, emerging technology have to working together. And one emerging tech cannot address the whole problem. And when you talk about the projection, that's, we a lot of around the advanced analytics, leveraging AI, where that's, you first, from the data, basically when you look at the project development life cycle, it's also a data generation and a data usage life cycle, where that's, the IoT related technology is addressing the data collection piece, where that's, in the data collection without IoT could be very challenging, high cost, and also some of data just missing, and then you have the data hole related problem, which just those data cannot be collected. Using IoT, you can collect the right data. And when you have data, naturally, it's who own the data, who can see the data, who can have access to the data, who can process and analyze the data. And then that's because of data will be used by multiple stakeholders, naturally there will be trust related issue. So then blockchain can address the issue of data trust, where that because it is recorded on the blockchain and where that nobody can tamper it. And so in the sense that you can address the trust related issue, you don't need a third party auditor who will audit your data and then add additional cost into that.
Cost.
Yeah, after you put all the data, the trusted data into one place and in the data lake or data warehouse, and now that you have all the data you can use. Using AI, you can do tons of things, including projection, including make any smart decision, including improve the efficiency in the process, identity of fraud, and tons of other things.
Fantastic. Stanley, you're smiling. Tell us what you have on your mind or ask questions.
Yeah, so many thoughts, and go back to your original questions about, some case studies, some examples. So, and I've been advocating open source for a long time, but then a lot of people worry about, well, is open source safe, right? In terms of security, and then how easy is it to implement? And just to relate it to your question is first that we've been deploying open source almost 20 years. And particularly, I can give you a couple of examples. One example is called pfSense, which is a firewall, which is widely deployed as one of the most widely deployed firewall solutions in the world, in fact, because it's an open source and started off. And of course, open source, and we can look at Linux. Is Linux safe? Well, look at how many companies, how many servers have been deployed to address that question. And it goes back into Xiaochen talking about, the people, the triage we all know, people, technology, and process. So, these three elements has to work hand in hand. And this is where to address the cost efficiency and effectiveness is, yes, you select an open source tool, which is what we did, and we deploy for various type of companies. And now to the point that, yes, you might already have the Cisco, Palo Alto type of firewall in place, but there are some incidents, for example, talking about the IoT, that they might not be highly secure because of the way they design. Then how can we deploy a more cost-effective type of solution to protect those IoT? This is where the pfSense can come in, a firewall behind another firewall for the network segmentation or micro segmentations. So this is the part that where it becomes more realistic for company to deploy. But of course, then how can you measure and monitoring it? That's another question being raised, and automation tools like AIs that has been deployed. And again, our philosophy, our principle is integrating platform as a service, not developing anything new, because there is a lot of existing tool. Why even reinvent the wheel when there are so many technology solutions out there? Second case is Astri. I started, go back into the analog telecommunication days. And then basically I said, well, we are working ourselves out of the industry because we go in from, analog to digital. And now look at the telephone systems. I used to work for Nortel. Unfortunately, that is one of the case, right? Being basically gone, and from a 100-year-old company, dominance in the telecom industry, of course, that they have their own problem as well. But then where they start struggling is they cannot adapt into the new innovative type of technology. And then they spend a lot of money reinventing the wheel when they don't necessarily have to do that. But that's a lot of stories behind that as well. But the case is Astri is become an open source telecommunication platform being used around the world for different purposes, and then enhancing what they already have built from the existing infrastructure. This is the principle we're going behind to address. Xiaochen talked about the cost efficiency. Why reinventing the wheel when we can adapt the existing technology? In cybersecurity, SANS institutes already identified there are over 150 of them. So this is where our, the people can come in as a community, as a part of the process to continue enhancing those open source tools to make it more cyber resilient. And then, of course, going from the strategic point of view, how do you go from a passive to reactive to proactive, and then to adaptive, to what is available in today's technology? That needs to have the company, the cultural changes, changing the narrative, the mindset, and the way that everybody contributing to cyber resilience. Doesn't matter whether they're working on the manufacturing floor, because now it's not just about cyber technology, it's also physical. Those processes go hand in hand. And we engage with company that they need to, improve their cybersecurity or cyber risk to comply to the customer's requirement. And one part of it, I say, well, we talked about how can they leveraging their existing ISO certification process that can be repurposed for the cybersecurity risk management strategy and executions. So this is another way that we talk about why reinventing the wheel when there are so many, different ways that we can engage together as a community to enhance our cyber resilience, to go back into the practicality of cost efficiency.
Xiaochen, do you have any comments relative to
what? I think that what Stanley mentioned is really, you could see it's just the two sides of one coin, right? And then technology will not exist in a vacuum, and technology will stay in an organization. Technology will stay in a process. Technology also stay in the infrastructure, and where that's when you just talk about why cybersecurity is important. And when you're introducing new technological solution, you're introducing new point of risk. And that can be cyber risk, that can be operational risk, that can be governance risk, that can be introducing tons of new risk. Where that's if you're introducing new solution, new technology without looking at the foundation, and highly possible in the future that you will enter into a place which is not desirable. And I think to having the technology folks and also bring the foundational type of solution providers in at early on is critical. When I was talking to central banks on central bank digital currency, and my number one question to them is that do you have an operational excellence pillar in your operational manual? So if not, you probably want to first look into that. And then second is, do you have a cloud related policy there or practice? And it's highly likely that your CBDC will just basically introducing tons of new nodes into your system. So if you don't have an operational manual and which guide you what is excellent for you, by just opening up so many nodes into your system, then that itself could just be tons of potential risk added to your existing system. The second piece is a lot of the solutions are run on, for example, cloud or other infrastructure. if you don't really have a view or a position that, whether we can use cloud, we cannot use cloud, what can be put into cloud, what you cannot be put in. Now that you have a business problem, you identify the right technical solution, and then you build it, and then you actually, your cloud-related national regulation or company or organization policy doesn't allow that solution to operate, because that may jeopardize the data privacy and other compliance-related framework which you're under, scrutiny. So in that, you have to also looking at that. And so that's why I think what Stanley brought into the table is that on the table is that, when you are looking at using or leveraging emerging technology to solve a business problem, you also need to look at the people, process, and the foundational, module or infrastructure, and make sure that you have all that pieces ready. Then that should go hand in hand with your technology solution or your application.
Absolutely. And I agree. And looking at the two sides of the coin, that go back into the topic of AI a little bit. And that's why we looking at the augmented intelligence with the reinforcement machine learning, rather than just looking at AI more artificial or generative. Of course, they, like you said, that there is a different type of applications, but in cybersecurity, at least that what we can look at, how can we tailoring with the GRC processes and to meeting the company objective. So from a strategic point of view, then it needs to define those objectives. But then when it comes to execution, and then continuously measure and monitoring, these are the 3 steps process, what we call the 3 steps to care: carefully, articulations, resolutions for excellencies. So it is a complicated word, but, and then the 3 steps to make it simple is known the unknown, building blocks. How can we work together to build the blocks that is satisfying those objectives? And then the third part is just continuous actions of measuring and monitoring, refining the tool. It doesn't have to be on a monthly basis. Even quarterly basis is better than most of the organization to do, deploy a pen test once a year. It doesn't work anymore. Back in those days, yes, pen test is very expensive and it can only be deployed once a year. But now we see that there is so many automation tools, or at least that the if you integrate in those different automation tools, it can be deployed even on a monthly basis to replace the vulnerability assessments. These are the things, the steps that it changes over time. And going back into the financial world and to address a very specific point, we actually, writing a white paper to how can we look at it from an automated perspective with the SIM tool that is being detecting a security incident, but to addressing a local regulatory issues, tethering, and then to tethering the GRC, and then actually instead of looking at the CVSS score, which a lot of security people do that only. Now, how can we leverage the tethering and prioritizing based on the local regulatory requirements needs? Because that could be a more costly to the company objective than the security vulnerability point of view. So this is the way that we're looking at as an augmented intelligence. Of course, that, in one sense that, yes, there is a lot of data in the world, but I have posed this challenge to the higher education. Look, we really don't have much contextual correlation data between technical and governance controls. And being in the universities or community college, you guys operated with tens of hundreds and thousands of students on a yearly basis, that they are very dynamic environment. How can we leverage their historical data to put this contextual correlations more effective use to train the augmented intelligence machine learning capability? So thank you, Mary, so I can put this challenge into the world to hopefully we get more higher educational institutes would respond to my challenge.
Interestingly, that I just had a conversation yesterday with the chief AI officer of the university, and talk exactly about that, because he explained to me that in university, basically, the data are siloed. Each department has its own, data structure, governance, and where they store, and those are not being used in a way which can just really bring more insights, to the university, and also help, student to get better performance and all that in general. And also, in different departments, they also play a significant role in research and contribute to specific industry, growth. And he gave the example in the healthcare industry, where it's very clear that the data used by the independent investigator of all the researchers in the university of large government grant, and then all those research data could just be used if you put them together, and for scientific community or science community, where that those can just generate a lot of insights and also reduce a lot of additional costs, or avoid a lot of costs which are just making science or scientific research expensive. So definitely, luckily, this is one of the university, they already have their chief AI officer, which is really spearheading this. And basically, he was sharing with me of his strategy of first putting our silo data into one place, and then to just getting all the potential use case coming out to say, now we have all the data, and it gets all the questions asked by all the departments, and say that with the data, what do you want to achieve in terms of student benefit, societal benefit, industry benefit? And then that's just put the technology, people, process around it, and then AI can really help the university to achieve a lot more better results. So yeah, I definitely, there are already universities responding to your challenge.
Yeah, and then tie this back into a specific industry like fintech, right? To start, that's the topic of this discussions, and AML, KYC, and all those regulatory requirements, has been implementing AI and blockchain as part of the process. But at the same time that I see that in the community, talking about in the cryptocurrency world, that in the financial world, there are still challenges, because that there are a lot of times going back into the fragmented world that we are living in, being siloed, and the data being siloed and not able to share. And of course, a lot of concerns that evolve in data privacy and data sovereignty on that subject. And that goes back into the blockchain, use of technology. I work with another organization. They years ago, they started with a blockchain schema, database schema, as the foundations. And of course, these they are sharing as an open source as well. And we just taking that on top of it and applying it into the different environments. So financial world has the money, and they have a lot of scrutiny on the regulations, and in particular now, the latest one coming from the SEC EO 14028. This is already embedded in my mind on a daily basis. So how can we look at that from an educational perspective, from a scientific approach, and applying this into different part of the world because of the data privacy and sovereignty. And this is where we believe that it's one track in the educational track that we can start the process, not just to looking at the benefits to the corporations or different organizations, for profit or non-profit. The way we look at it, or I look at it as well, is I've been doing this as a mentoring program, internship program. So we work with local university to actually educating them, person to person. How do they take this as a new approach, as a more adaptive response strategy to execute what's going on today. We cannot just look at all those, cannot rely on those for-profit companies that putting out the product and then educating the future practitioner when there are so many different available technology, a lot of people willing to share their insights and then sharing their experience into enhancing the processes. And these are the part of the challenge, that how can we package them or integrate them into one solution, so to speak, and then sharing it to the future practitioner. This is another goal that we are trying to achieve.
Wow, we could go on for another hour. This is good. This is good. I want to, I had wanted to mention that, I was thinking about the risk that you guys were talking about and was wondering about insurance and that sort of thing. And I think, Stanley, you said that you and I had talked a little bit about that. Yeah. And we can't get, I think we need to save that for another conversation. So we will do that again. Yeah, I think we need a whole nother show for that. I wanted to have Xiaochen talk to us a little bit about what you're doing with COP. Talk to us also a little bit about the fund that you're building so that we can get that information out as well. And then maybe Stanley can help share that forward with anybody that he knows as well.
Oh, sure. And so definitely that's also just it's a very good continuation of what Stanley mentioned, that basically, if I summarize, Stanley, it's really around responsible innovation, right? And then you have to get the community, you have to get the technology right, you have to, it's all, you need to move forward responsibly and make everything right. So one part of that is, around climate change, right? How to get that right. And every year that's, there is the world largest climate negotiation happen, and under the name of Conference of Parties, COP. So this year, COP 28 will be organized in Dubai in early December. And so, we are working with, FinTech for Good is working with UN SDGs and on this initiative called Billions for Trillions Climate Alliance, and scaling climate impact through emerging technology. And basically, from UNFCCC, they launched the Global Innovation Hub. And for the hub, they try to really inspire for a paradigm shift. Before, a lot of climate change mitigation is, sector-based. So UNFCCC, try to hope that, while we achieve mitigation benefits, we can also address the core human needs. So then we just, address it through one stone, two birds at the same time. Those core human needs like shelter, like nutrition, and all of that have a climate angle. How can we just really, through innovation, bring new need-based climate mitigation solution to the world? And of course, a lot of them are existing solution, and some are the new solution. And emerging technology can play a very important role to both. And for the Billions for Trillion Climate Alliance, which is, we try to really just fill in the financing gap there. If you want to just funding the need-based climate innovation, you need to do a couple of things. Number one is, where are the new and additional climate finance which are available funding those innovations? So definitely from, blockchain introduced, tokenization, DeFi or crypto, and leveraging, crypto to, raising funds from non-traditional investors. So that's all just could potentially bring new additional climate finance into that. And another piece is that, through AI, machine learning, and the blockchain, and then we can just really introducing new financial instruments like climate impact tokens, AI-powered climate risk insurance, and convertible green bonds, climate-linked CBDC, and impact tokenized fund, decentralized VC network, tons of new vehicle which can be designed through the new bringing the financial instrument together with emerging technology, and that can just again help to mobilize new additional financing. The third piece of that is many of those existing solutions, no matter it's climate, like addressing shelter, addressing nutrition, and they need to basically design a new business. They already have a solution there which deliver that climate and the nutrition co-benefits, but the business model is constrained that it's commercially not viable. Through leveraging AI, machine learning, and other emerging technology, and then this alliance can also help to reducing the cost of those emerging solutions. That can just reduce the need of climate finance. So to scale up large-scale climate mitigation and need-based climate innovation. So that is really the alliance, and we have a session during COP28 in Dubai, and we'll bring emerging technology leaders, financial service institutions, and also the climate foundations or philanthropies all together, and see that here are a pathway forward. Here are the role for each one of us, and if you agree with the approach with your role, that's just bring together at least $1 billion by COP 2030, and using that $1 billion kind of investment mobilized, that's achieve a $1 trillion climate impact. So that's what we are planning, and hopefully we can achieve that, and definitely leading up to that in September, and we'll have a workshop in New York, bring a lot of stakeholders together. There's another one in Dubai, in Saudi Arabia in October, and leading up to COP28 in Dubai in December.
Wow.
Wow.
Big stuff. Big work to do.
Exciting.
Yeah. So last question, as we get ready to wind up, and you know what it is. It's who do you need to meet to help you move forward with what you're doing, Xiaochen?
Yeah, and someone like Stanley, and who know the process, know the concern, know what didn't work, and then to just working together to make the work. And of course, that's as I shared, that's the key community to just really move the needle. We do need those, for example, mayors from different cities, because from the need-based in climate innovation, and the number one thing is that we cities play a very important role in climate addressing climate challenge, and we definitely want to have the city leaders to just join the conversation, and then share with the innovation community that's what need what are the future they want for their city, and how can innovators help them to achieve that goal. So we do need the leadership from the city to tell us. Then we also need the innovators who are builders to build them. We need the financiers who can just also bring the money, and we also need the throughout the value chain, and then those corporate and all that to support this the whole process. Because from innovation, from ideation to large scale, you do need at a different stage where that you have resources backing them up, so then they can really achieve that result.
Wow. Like I said, big plate, big stuff, big stuff on your plate, but it's really good. And I can see synergies between the two of you. And I think that we need to do this again and have another conversation for sure. So stay with me, you two, and say thank you, Stanley, so much for coming on board and co-hosting. And Xiaochen, it's always a pleasure to see you. So hang with me, and I'm just going to say goodbye to everybody else. If you're seeing this or hearing it on one of your podcast channels, go to frontrunnersinnovate.com, where you'll get this with bios on these two gentlemen and links to how you can get in touch with them, and especially how you can help Xiaochen with the efforts that he just mentioned and partner with him. So again, thanks guys. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Mary.